engineer as a woman. So anyway, we're on YouTube now with Dana Banana. I'm going to turn the mic over to you, my friend. Thank you for being with us.
Thanks, Lynn. Can you guys hear me? You can hear me okay?
Yes, loud and clear.
Okay, perfect. I always want to check. Yeah, as far as that extra N in my name, first of all, it's funny because even with the word banana behind my name, people still call me Dana. And I mean, it's fine. It's really not that big of a deal. But I know in this case, I know who's talking to me and everything. So. But I used to think that too, oh, maybe I should have an extra name. But then I became a course student and I started to realize that there have been no accidents in my life, including any confusion that might be surrounding my name and how it's pronounced, and how even that has led to, me feeling things like, oh, life was so unfair by giving me a name that confuses everybody. And, how it makes me feel a little bit different and a little bit special and not always in such a good way. And, again, I look back on all of that stuff and it's like, it's perfect. It's absolutely perfect if I'm going to play a role of somebody who views themselves as unfairly treated, or at a disadvantage or limited or what have you. Then stuff like that plays into it perfectly because that is the experience I've had. It's not really just because of the name, but because of all kinds of things. And it's really within this last week, I guess, that I have just been, I guess, contemplating. That would be the best word I can come up with. But I guess contemplating, all right, so I'm the dreamer of this dream. Why am I choosing this dream? Right? Why am I dreaming that I am this figure and so on and so forth? I don't have an answer for that yet, but even just the question um, is an interesting one and kind of removes, at least to some degree, whether or not am I a victim of all of this, or am I did I ask for this? I just don't remember doing it. And I've said many times in other talks, that I know I've chosen this. I had to have chosen this. We all chose this. Because we're getting exactly what we want. Just we don't remember choosing it. We don't remember ordering it, but that doesn't mean it didn't happen. This is like a giant case of amnesia. So, anyway, so it's been kind of an interesting week. I don't do a whole lot for the most part. I don't usually have much energy to do very much, and thankfully, most of the work that I do is from home, so I really don't have to, for the time being, rely on having to go out and do things. And I've kind of withdrawn from all sorts of social activities and what have you that I may have used to have been involved with. I have no idea how long that's going to last, but for now, it seems like that's where I need to be. Book Karen just put book your soul's plan, and let me see. And Karen had also put, I like the idea of pre-birth planning in Robert Schwartz's book. Okay, so, and that book is Your Soul's Plan. I may check that out. Um, it's amazing how many different symbols and signs there are of, why we're here and so many different takes on it. And sometimes that can be very interesting. Um, I've heard lots of things, lots of different theories. We sat with a council of elders of sorts, in the in between lives stage, and we decided, okay, learned that lesson that time, didn't learn it so well. Maybe this time, we'll line these things up and learn these lessons, and these are the kinds of people that will wind up in your life to act out these parts, and so on and so forth. So it's definitely interesting, but of course, I wouldn't have a recollection of anything in between dream figures. I barely have a recollection of anything that happened last week. So, but it might be interesting to check out, and I'll keep that in mind. And But within this last week, it was a busier week. It was a busier week, and it's amazing how exhausting that can be right now, but I guess that's okay because every single time stuff comes up that makes me uncomfortable, the first question, can I let this be here? And it's just amazing how that one question can take any type of anxiety, any type of resistance, and just kind of soften it, not in a bypassing kind of a way, but in a very, very soothing, very allowing, and a very gentle, gentle way. Can I just let this be here? And so that was definitely a theme for the week. Lynn just put in the chat, and I'm going to read this. All right, number 18. What could you not accept if you but knew that everything that happens, all events, past, present, and to come, are gently planned by one whose only purpose is your good? Perhaps you have misunderstood his plan, for he would never offer pain to you. But your defenses did not let you see his loving blessing shine in every step you ever took. While you made plans for death, he led you gently to eternal life. And then she just added, all events, past, present, and to come, yes, are gently planned by one whose only purpose is your good. And that has been another very comforting thought, kind of right along with the can I let this be here? Can I let this be here? Yes, I can let this be here because as time goes on, and I may not be perfect at it, but I'm learning to trust the one that I've given my trust to. And it was not an easy thing to do at first. It's not easy to hand the reins over when you're controlling. And I didn't realize how controlling I was until the last year or so. But now that I can see it, and now that I'm choosing differently, and I've put so much trust into what I've always thought was true here, that it's actually something of a pleasure to hand the reins over to my inner teacher and just say, I don't know what this is for. I don't understand any of it. I don't know how I feel about it, but I'm going to trust you, right? I'm going to trust you when it feels okay to trust you. And for that, yes, I can let this be here. I have no idea what it's trying to tell me, but as it turns out, everything I think I've ever known turned out to be wrong. So I don't know if I had mentioned this last week or not, but as you guys know, I tend to look at TV and movies differently than I used to. And we're finishing up a series that I've watched once before, and I had remembered certain things about it. And in rewatching it this time, I caught that I was starting to have a similar experience, but it was like intensified. So in this series, there's a couple of characters, and they're kind of not really up to any good, right? They're up to no good. They scheme, they scam. And I remembered from the last time that they had kind of ganged up together against this one other character who turned out to be, a pretty good person. And ruined his life, and inadvertently, they didn't mean for this to happen, had no idea this was going to happen, but it led to his death. And I remembered the last time watching this, and it was, I want to say a few months before starting the course. And I had a problem with these two characters, specifically with one of them, to the point where it was like, it actually caused me a certain amount of angst. And so, okay, the series ends. I kind of got over it. It was sort of filed back there. And I've realized that anything that's not looked at just kind of gets filed back there, and it hangs out in the unconscious mind. And then it's like at any given time, it'll kind of come back out and show itself. So this time around, I'm watching this again, this time knowing what's going to happen and knowing how things are going to play out. And so it was like I almost knew in advance, oh, yeah, I'm going to be angry with this person again. Actually, the two characters, but especially this one. I'm going to be angry, and it's going to be hard for me to deal with, and so on and so forth. And what's interesting is I have noticed that all the time I used to spend, no matter what the subject matter was, ruminating in whatever particular topic or memory or scenario or what have you, how much time I could spend in that place, literally like feeding it, or maybe not literally, figuratively feeding it in my mind, right? Um, Giving that battery a whole bunch of juice, right? Just playing it out, and participating in it in my mind. I did that and I never realized how much time I spent doing that. And within the last, I don't know, year or two, I started to catch that. So, really, for the most part, I, if that does start to happen, it maybe takes me up to a minute to notice that this is what's happening and to kind of stop the insanity of it and step back. Oh, look at what you're doing again. You're just kind of replaying or going, having this entire story playing out in your mind this way, and you're feeding into it and you're believing it, and even having bodily symptoms over it, right? I don't know if you guys have ever noticed, but when you are caught in your head in a story, if it makes you feel a certain way, the body can actually take on symptoms, and I know that mine has, even if it's just in the form of adrenaline. You get the adrenaline rush, you get the heart beating, and so on and so forth. So that tightness in the chest and in the throat. So anyway, I don't find that I can do that very often at all these days. I tend to catch it very, very quickly. And it took a little while. And it was just constant monitoring, constant thought watching, to the point where I guess if there's some kind of a conscious observer sort of hanging out in the back of my mind, watching all of it, knowing more of what it is, that's become the louder voice, so to speak. So I don't spend any time in that place. Like I said, maybe up to a minute, but and it's been great, to catch it so quickly. But I noticed the other day that I'm thinking about this TV character, and I got totally caught up in it, and I did not catch it. And I spent some time there. I spent some time ruminating in this little environment in my mind where I'm condemning this character. Oh, I can't stand them. And come to think of it, any YouTube reviewer talking about them and saying anything to the contrary, well, they can go screw themselves too, because they're bad and they're wrong. And it's amazing how, like, this could just kind of spread, you know? It's like I'm having this angry, condemning thought, and how easy it could be to spread to that thing and that person and this other situation. And before you know, it just becomes this giant grievance. And I caught it, but it took me a little while. And I noticed that it was a forgiveness opportunity, right? It was like, in fact, I even knew that later on in the evening I was going to watch the episode where that totally set me off. And so I was kind of preparing for it. And I felt this anxiety over, like, I'm going to have to watch this character do this thing that's going to end in this way. I'm having a problem with it from the last time I saw it. I'm having a problem even thinking about it now. How am I going to react to it when I actually sit and watch it again? And it was held up in front of me. The whole thing was held up in front of me. And it was like, I know that this is a forgiveness opportunity. I know that this is something that is here just for release. This is unforgiven guilt, and it's right now the culprit or the catalyst is this character. So that was when the intention shifted, and that the intention, or the goal, I would say, the goal shifted. And the goal pretty much was, how can I see this as it is rather than the way I set it up? Right? How can I see this differently? And I closed my eyes, I spent some time with it, and I guess, actively chose my right mind. And what happened was, I don't know how this came about, but suddenly I realized that this character was me, right? Not so much in what they did, but how they were, like the things that I didn't like in them. Um, Not only could I see those traits in me, but I could also see the traits that they had were traits that I wished I had, but don't. So it was like a whole pile of unconscious guilt and angst and even mirroring that up until a week ago, I did not notice, did not see. But now, not only can I see it now, but actually throughout this last week, I've been able to see little glimpses of it, here and there in unexpected ways. Like I could be having a feeling or a thought and an expression would show up, and that expression, which would be like a symbol of how I was feeling, I could see it on that character's face, right? So it was just this, I hate this person, I hate this character, oh my god, I hate this character, oh wait, that's me. So it was just, and not like in the entirety, but just enough to where once I was able to see certain aspects of myself in this character, and again, not specific, more abstract, like I could see why this character was the way they were, right? I could see what caused them to do the things that they did, which I didn't pay a whole lot of attention to the first time. And underneath what they were doing, I could see, oh, they felt unworthy as a kid, especially because they had shown a couple of flashbacks and they showed, this character felt very unworthy, out of place. The main caretaker was somebody who just disapproved of them unless they were scamming or joined in, to the scamming ways of the parent. And that was when the parent decided, hey, you might be interesting now, right? I'm not saying that those were me because I wasn't a scammy kind of person, but like I said, I could see in this character how their background and these hidden beliefs that they have about themselves, what led them to be the way they were and then do the things that they did. So, in all of this, I sat with it, and this unveiling of, oh no, they're you, right? I can see this, I can see this sort of showing itself to me. And I recognize, oh, and on top of it, in this series, they show how afterwards, I'm not telling you what the series is, just in case you do watch it, and I don't want to spoil anything for anybody. So, but they do show that this character winds up, deeply, deeply regretful over what they did, and spends the next, I don't know, however many years, in this place of they run away from their lives and they give up everything that was important to them, and they live in this mindset. They live a lifestyle that is devoid of any joy, any happiness, and just a very, very mundane existence, constant self-punishment, and just living in deep regret and deep remorse and deep guilt and so on and so forth, to the point where they wind up even kind of turning themselves in later on, to just face whatever it was that they did. So as I am noticing all of this, the hatred toward the character, the judgment and the condemnation over what they did, and then this desire, I want to be able to see them differently. Now I could see me in them, or at least aspects of me in them, and I can understand that a little bit better. I can have a little bit more compassion toward them. And then realizing how later on, after everything had been said and done, the deep regret and the shame that they had felt, this thought occurred to me, and it was like, you know what it's like to live in that space, of deep regret and shame and remorse, even over like the tiniest, seemingly tiniest of things. And you can see that this character is living this guilt, this regret, this angst, right? Would you want to continue through your judgment and through your condemnation to punish this person after? I mean, never mind the fact that, we're course students and it's not a cool idea necessarily to do that in general, right? But sometimes this is just some of that unconscious guilt that's still coming to the surface. And yes, unfortunately, I do catch myself doing it quite a bit, but I catch it a lot. But in this case, it was like this person has already dealt with their grief and their guilt and their angst. Do I want to continue to punish them in my mind? And then it made me think of me, you know, look at how much guilt and regret and remorse I've experienced. I can't tell you how many times over even the seemingly dumbest things, oh my gosh, I wish I could go back and do that differently, do that again. I've had lots and lots of moments where it's, I wish I could go back in the past and just redo all of these things. I can't even begin to explain over the last couple of years how many different little memories and situations have come back into my awareness. And I feel like I could almost choke on the amount of guilt or regret that I feel over it. Right. They just come out of nowhere. They hit you and it's like, oh my goodness, I know what that guilt and regret feels like. And I know that I continue to punish myself over them. And thankfully, I'm catching that, right? And I have been having more compassion toward myself about all of this. And it has been extending toward other people. And when it comes to this character, that was the question that came up, right? This person has already been punishing themselves. They got it, right? They feel it. Do I want to keep punishing them? And so the answer was like, obviously, no. Actually, I do not want to continue to punish them. Why kick a dog when they're down? And that's exactly how it felt. And that's exactly how I treat myself, right? For me, it's been a hard habit to break, but I'm thankful that I notice it. And so with all of that, I I didn't actually say the words, I forgive this character, but with all of this, I'm not kidding. I went in a matter of a day, I didn't think about it all day, but I could say toward the earlier part of the day, I hate this character, hate this character, hate this character. After all of that, maybe a few hours later, it was gone. Like all that hate, all the condemnation, all of the judgment that I had toward this television character. And like I said, it was strong enough for me to even interact with it in my mind and not even catch it right away, which is what I usually do. It vanished. And it's a week later and it's still gone. So it was like just kind of, again, I know it's a TV character, but it was just such a beautiful feeling to have been able to take this figure that had had a certain label to them in my mind for like the last 3+ years. And in the matter of a couple of hours of just looking with the Holy Spirit and having the goal to forgive, how that dark, heavy feeling of judgment and hate and condemnation disappeared. It just disappeared. And it's funny because now I look at that character and I feel nothing but compassion, right? It's like I went from, oh my God, you're the worst thing in the world, to I would hug you if I could. So I just that was just an interesting experience that I had this week, which will, I guess, kind of really quick. Let me look at this chat. So Karen had put a little while ago, when you argue with reality, you lose, but only 100% of the time. Byron Katie, yeah. And then Mickey had put angry thoughts tend to snowball like that. Yes, they do. When you argue with reality, you lose, but only 100% of the time. Yeah, I'm finding that when I argue with anything, I tend to lose. And it's a beautiful way to kind of go into this other forgiveness practice that happened. So, with doing that kind of forgiveness work. I guess I can't speak for anybody else, and I don't know if it works this way with you guys, but with me, I've noticed that there is always that potential for some kind of backlash after that. And I I've learned, thanks to one of my miracle buddies, I have learned not to expect it, or to or to put that expectation out there. But I do kind of notice that there is that potential for that to happen. So it did. I would say a couple of days later, I had an old trigger that had come back up, and it really, really, really stung because it's an unforgiven aspect of my personality that just kind of came back up to the surface. And it leads to a lot of judgment. And in this particular case, I've always felt very socially anxious, like I don't fit in. I've never felt like I fit in, but I do feel like at times when I was younger, I was able to do a much better job at camouflaging that. But as time went on, I started to realize that I kind of really just never felt like I fit in. Now, in smaller groups of like-minded people, I love stuff like that. And when I say like-minded, it just means if I can have a conversation with you about things that seem to be meaningful to me, and they seem to also be meaningful to you, then it makes it much, much easier. Um, but in social situations, it's just tough for me. I kind of feel like that sore thumb that sticks out. And back when I was in my early 20s, I would go out to the clubs and the bars with my friends, and I had started drinking because it was the only way I could be in or around all of those people and in those environments and have anything whatsoever to talk about, because otherwise I just didn't, right? So, and then over the years, I've just realized, I kind of just don't I, I I don't feel so great at the social situations. I tend to be a very deep thinker, and I look at other people and it's like, look at all these people who can just talk to each other like it's no problem. They talk about their careers and their jobs and their families and their lives, and it's like I just don't have a whole lot to contribute where that's concerned. I always would strive and have to really try to think about things. Um, and unfortunately, I feel this way around a good portion of my family as well. Now, don't get me wrong, I love them and I like them, but I have like nothing to talk about with most of them. And so, this feeling that had come back from particularly like 6 years ago, after going to my sister's wedding and kind of realizing what a sore thumb I felt at that time and how awkward and terrible and guilty it made me feel, like what's wrong with me kind of thing. It came back up this week and I felt it acutely. And it was just, on one hand, I was really thankful that it came up because it's giving me the opportunity to look at it again, because clearly it hasn't gone away. At the same time, it's just very painful. So that pain kind of stuck with me for a couple of days. And I realized that what it seemed I was feeling was an undercurrent of what I can only term like a high voltage current. So I don't know if you guys are familiar with this feeling, but have you ever noticed that there's just kind of like a low grade but very active sort of angst or anger that is just present within you, and that no matter who you come across or what they say or what happens, anything that just kind of touches it will set it off, hence set you off. Because that's how I felt for a couple of days at the beginning of this week. And it stemmed, I think, from this. Yes, okay, Elizabeth is like, yes, yeah. So it doesn't feel so hot, right? You kind of just feel like you feel just ready to be triggered, like anything at any time, no matter who it is, no matter what they do, whatever it is, it can trigger you and it can trigger you hard. And so that's where I was. And gnawing inside. Yep. Yeah, something like that. Or actually the way it kind of looked in the way it kind of looked in my mind, it's sort of like if you ever see a live power line kind of just laying on the street, you know you can't really go anywhere near it because anything that touches it's going to set it off and get electrocuted. And that's kind of how it feels. And Mickey had put, we all have an undercurrent of unease and discontent. Yes, yes, exactly. And so that's how I was feeling. And it was one of those, here I did this, what felt like a big forgiveness practice. And so this comes to the surface afterward, you know. I kind of look at that, this whole ego backlash thing. At first, I looked at it as though maybe the ego's trying to punish me. But the ego is not this force that's out there that's against me. The ego is a decision to be a different self. So it's really just me fighting me, right? One side of the mind kind of at war with the other side of the mind. One side of, you know, the one that's at war, clearly the ego, the one that's not at war is like, you're nothing to fight with because you're nothing, right? But the one that was wanting to fight was loud and it was active this week. And so anyway, I noticed that's what's going on. There was nothing I could do to get out of it. There was no amount of trying to listen or read course material. There was no activity that I could get into. There was no distraction that I could find that was going to pacify this or distract me or allow me to bypass it in any way. It was just there. So the only thing that I could do was to just acknowledge it and let it be there, right? Apparently, this week, I feel like a live wire kind of hanging out in the middle of the road, right? Just probably in your best interest to stay back. But at the same time, if you don't, I'll do everything I can to work with it. I will use it for the forgiveness practice and, know that it's just my job to let it be there exactly as it is, right? But it was one of those lessons, I couldn't make myself practice forgiveness on it. I couldn't make myself do even a Sedona method release technique on it. There was nothing that would work, but I could look, I could acknowledge it, and I could just kind of allow it to be there. So I'd say by like Tuesday night, and here we had a road trip happening the next day, and that's enough to make me feel a whole lot of angst as well, because those kinds of things just give me a lot of anxiety right now, traveling, having to exert much energy being around people. Elizabeth had put, yes, so do I. These recent days amplified, it seems. Yeah, I feel you there, and I've noticed that as well. I think that a lot of us are definitely noticing some high tension out there, and it just points to the importance of being conscious with your thoughts, with looking, because you know it runs you otherwise. And it's hard when you are looking. This is pretty much the whole point of this. Even when you are looking, even when you are conscious of it, it can still feel intense. And so that's how it was feeling for me. So later on Tuesday night, something set me off, right? It was something that my husband didn't do anything wrong at all. There was absolutely no blame whatsoever on him. But there was something that he did that was innocent as could be, but because I was high voltage, oh, I got so mad. I saw it coming and I got so mad. And I'm sitting there and I'm watching it, I'm observing it, and at the same time, I'm feeling it, right? And it was really, really weird. It was a strange sensation of, the only way I can describe it is it feels like you're standing, I don't know, maybe in the middle of a hurricane, maybe like in the eye of a hurricane, and you're watching all of this activity happen around you, all of this storminess, and it's picking things up and it's, moving them down the street into your neighbor's yard and just kind of throwing things around. And if you take a step out of that eye toward any part of that storm, you're going to get swept up in it. And so the only thing that you can do is stay put and don't move and just continue to watch this thing do what it's going to do and know that once it does its job, it'll be on its way. That's how it felt. So I'm watching this trigger and I'm feeling it at the same time. And I had made this conscious decision of I'm just going to sit with this. I'm going to let this entire thing play out exactly as it is. And just to show you how stupid this was, it was like I wanted to watch something, he wanted to watch something else, right? That's how dumb it was. It was like nothing happened. It was enough, though, to show me that there are no small upsets. They are all equally disturbing to my peace of mind. And it's not the first time I've come across that, that, so I guess epiphany, that's right in the course. I remember the first time I read it, and then I remember the first time I experienced it. There really are no small upsets. And this was small, right? Like nobody did anything. But somehow I was already mad. I was already in that space. I was already feeling attacked by life and just in my own thoughts, my own energy. So in this case, it was, Veruca Salt didn't get her way and she got mad. And that was pretty much how it worked out. And I was aware of it. And we wound up, I kind of let the situation be exactly as it was. It was like, I get there's no point in arguing about what I think I want to do because it has absolutely no importance. It's just a symbol. This is just an opportunity. I can either defend something that does not need any defense whatsoever. I can argue for what I want when in reality that has nothing to do with what any of this is showing me. Or I can just let this play out the way it's playing out and I can sit in it and allow it to storm and just watch it, right? Including my own thoughts and reactions to it. So that's exactly what I did. And it took a little minute, right? It took, I want to say, about 10-15 minutes or so into it. And I'm sitting with it and I'm feeling the feelings. Where is this in the body? Okay, I can feel the tightness in the chest. I can feel the contraction. I can feel it in this other area, maybe coming up toward my face or the back of my head or something. Just paying attention to where this seems to be stored in the body. And, he turned to me and he's like, is it because of me? Because I had mentioned like, yeah, I'm in a place. I'm just in a place right now, I'm just letting you know. Is it me? And I thought for a second, how am I going to answer this question? And so this was what came out because I've just, I had invited the Holy Spirit into my mind at this point. Just look at this with me, Holy Spirit. This is what appears to be going on. I know that my reaction has nothing to do with the story. It has everything to do with the state that I was already in. And the state that I was already in has twisted this entire thing to turn it into an unforgiving thought. And my only job is to choose differently, right? So that's what I did. I basically turned to him and I said, no, no, this was not you. I said, the interesting thing is I was already in that place and anything that you do, in fact, anything that anybody probably does right now is going to set it off because that is the existing condition. And it's my job to notice it and to work with it and to realize that even though it could look like I might be mad at you, or it could look like I might blame you for this thing, this has absolutely nothing to do with you. You've done nothing wrong, right? This is all me and it is all about choice. But to sit in that feeling when it is so intense, and it's intense, no matter how conscious you are in the middle of that kind of thing, it's just intense, and there's no getting out of it. For me, the only, at least not for me, the only thing there is that being conscious of it. I know this is not what it looks like. I know this is not about the meaning that I have given to it, but it does not make the feeling necessarily dissipate right away. But afterwards, and I can't really say how long afterwards, sometimes it lasts a little while, sometimes it dissipates right away. But I have noticed that sometime after the fact, there's a deep sense of gratitude over that having, whatever it was, having happened, because it gave me the opportunity to look at it and forgive it. So that's twice, within the last week that I felt super riled up. I mean, yeah, I study and practice this course as much as, as much as anybody, I guess, who's studying and practicing this course. For me, it's like a full-time job. It's all the time. I can't not do it. At this point, it's like trying to go back and be the way I was and think the way I was. It just doesn't make any sense. It's redundant. So for me, it's like, yeah, this is on my mind all of the time, right? Whether it's a seemingly small upset or a larger upset or whatever it is. This is always on my mind now. I can't help but have it on my mind now. And it's just, you know, to thank something for making me mad is not something I ever thought would happen. But you do this long enough, and it is such an amazing opportunity to have something feel like it's getting pulled out of you so that you could bless it, right? So that, or at least be willing to bless it and extend the grace of God to it, and then be thankful for it, just for giving you that opportunity. So that's what things kind of looked like for me this week. And those were just a couple of the opportunities that I had. Elizabeth had put great reminder, no small upsets, ugh, and wow, intense, yes. Yeah, no small upsets. So anyway, like I said, that has been my week so far. Practicing forgiveness. And yes, I do feel I think we can say for several months now it seems like things have been intense, right? The world, the weather conditions, the Earth's activities have been intense. There's been a lot of solar flare. This is all symbolic to me. Solar flare activity, seismic activity, electromagnetic, geomagnetic activity. There's all kinds of intense, noticeable changes that appear to be taking place in nature, in the very structure of at least this planet. I have no idea what may or may not be going on in other planets. Like I said, this is all symbolic. But to me, it all represents movements, literally the moving of mountains, right? It's you, the Course says there's no difficulty in miracles, and not, it doesn't matter the shape or the size or anything, right? Whether you're looking to move a tiny little pebble or wanting a mountain to move, there's no difference in it. And here, through none of our physical activity, right? We can blame the weather if we want on people, I guess. It's been going on for a long time. And I'm not saying in the story that there might not be some merit to it. But I mean, are people responsible for the Earth's magnetic field shifting and changing? Are people responsible? And I'm talking through regular, exactly, volcanoes, floods, earthquakes, solar stuff, which is what Lynn had just put into the chat, right? So maybe, you know, maybe if we want, we can continue to listen to the politicians, blame greenhouse gases for climate change and this and that and the other. But Are we setting the volcanoes off? Are we responsible for the earthquakes? Right? If I throw my plastic gallon container in the garbage instead of the recycle bin many times, am I going to cause a volcano to erupt? I don't know about that, but I can say that for me, and I'm no scientist, and these are just little theories and thoughts and so on and so forth, but I'm just going to say that this whole thing does not, to me, mimic human behavior. What it does mimic to me is movement in the one mind, right? So, and then Lynn had put, yeah, it's my projected thought. So that's what all of this activity looks like to me, movement in the one mind, right? So maybe it looks like the movement of mountains looks impossible, but for the power of this mind that made it, that dreams this world, no, that is not impossible at all. In fact, it's just part of it. That's what I think is going on. And I think it's a matter of built up pressure, and we're seeing some of this pressure come out in different ways. I can feel the pressure coming out in the body. I can feel the pressure in my jaws and my teeth and stuff. I can feel it in different areas. I can feel all these insights coming into my mind, but and all of this stuff getting released, but the stuff that I've been releasing in the mind hasn't quite left the mind yet. It's sort of in the trash pile waiting for 1-800 junk to come and pick it all up. But in the meantime, it's kind of still sitting there. So I can feel the pressure of the new and the old not trying to hang out in the same space and causing that pressure. And I think the whole world is feeling it, right? What I'm experiencing is no different than the rest of the world. Lynn had put, we are digging, drilling, blowing up nuclear weapons underground, right? Feels electrified, is what Elizabeth put. Absolutely, I think it feels electrified. In fact, I heard somebody once say that thoughts are electric and emotions are magnetic, right? So, and every time that like if I'm going to, like I mentioned before, I was going on and on about this character in the TV show and stuff, and I'm feeding into it, and it hit me. It was like, oh my goodness, I know better. I know not to charge this battery. Look at me charging the battery, right? Anytime we believe the stories and we stay involved with them and we become victims of them or participants in them, whatever it is, we're charging like this battery. And yes, that is electric. So this is what I feel has been going on, and it's difficult and can be very painful and challenging when you know to look at them, when you know to question them. So I can only imagine. Yeah, actually, I don't even have to imagine. All I have to do is remember what it was like to walk around in that state and not be conscious of it, to just be the walking emotional reaction, unquestioned. And it's no wonder that the world looks the way it does. To me, this is nothing more than you know a bunch of fragments of the one mind not looking at the contents in the one mind, right? We believe we're the characters. I really, really wish I could say I'm in that space where I know I'm not the dream character, but unfortunately, for the time being, that is not my experience. I still feel very much like the dream character. Um, I'm not going to talk like I don't feel that way. I can't say things, even in the course, that haven't resonated yet with me. But there is one thing that I can do. It is the most honest thing I can do. I can be willing, and that is it. And it seems that the less I have forced myself to be a quote unquote good course student and instead just be gentle and be willing. And that means if I'm feeling hateful, if I'm feeling condemning, if I'm feeling like I want to point my finger at you, damn it, I know I'm supposed to forgive you. I know that that's the right thing to do, but I don't want to let that up, right? Just let that up, let that be here. Of course, I'm insane, right? I think I'm a person. According to the course, that is insanity, right? How could I possibly not want to blame other people or condemn other people? That is part of this thought system. It's every ridiculous thing that seems to happen here is just part of this thought system. Yes, Karen.
Hi.
Hey there.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I just want to say how much I love what you just shared. It's so important to meet yourself where you are, no matter what, and I just recently shared this about myself. I was going through a lot of pain, like not really, the physical pain wasn't as bad as the mental pain I was going through over this physical stuff I'm going through. And like I have to say, like I kind of attacked myself a little bit and I was angry and I was, a lot of stuff came up, but I needed to go through that to see the unreality of it. We have to go through these things. And I'm not saying everyone has to. I'm going to speak for myself because number one, I can't pretend it's not there. I can't deny what I'm feeling, what I'm going through. And yes, of course, I could step back with the Holy Spirit and look at it, but I wasn't ready. I wanted to be angry because I was freaking angry. And so once I get through the anger and I'm ready to accept the Holy Spirit, then I welcome the Holy Spirit in. But I don't think we can fake it. Like you said, we have to go through it. This ain't easy, man. This is like what does Ken Wapnick say? He says that if you think this is easy, you're not paying attention. And it gets easier with practice, but there are some things that, you get thrown some curveballs in life sometimes. And it's not always peaches and cream. And I think that we have to be honest with ourselves, but we get through it because we're looking at it. We're not denying it. So what you said is so right on. And I just want to thank you.
Thanks, Karen. Yeah, it is. It is difficult. It's difficult times, and even when you've been practicing this diligently, it's like we still get triggered, and it still comes. It still seems to come out of thin air. At this point, I kind of expect it. It's like shit. Anything can happen, right? And my only job is to just, as best as I can, witness it. And for me, it helped to it helped to practice on the seemingly smaller things, the things that didn't seem to involve immediate fight or flight response, so those thousand small irritations that can happen per day, those were like the perfect things to practice on insofar as like this whole training of the mind. And what you said about, Ken talking about this, if you think this course is easy, then you're probably not doing it right. What showed up for me is that practicing this material and applying it every day is for the mind what it would be to practice probably for the Olympics for the body, right? It's like Olympic style training. And but you know what? The other day when I was feeling like nothing was going to work, absolutely nothing was going to work. And I kind of had that thought too, Olympic style training. Well, even the Olympic athletes need to take a day off, right? Even they need their day of rest. And that it's an interesting parallel and a reminder from my years of going to school for all of this stuff and so on, that there is such a thing as overtraining, right? So it's like there are going to be those times when nothing's going to work. You might feel restless and you might feel like, oh, I can't stand the way I feel right now. I got to go do something. And I have to practice or listen to something or read something. And it's like, no, nothing's going to work. And there is, I think, a way of quote unquote overtraining. And those are the times I think we need to be the most gentle with ourselves, and just like you said, allow the anger to just kind of be there, recognize it, let it just be there, you know. It seems to be the path of least resistance. So let me see. And Elizabeth had put brokenness, repairs, fix it uppers, cracks, concrete, dust, manufactured. Heaven seems so far away. As long as we think we are here, it's one thing after another. Maladaptive solution to non existent problems. separation has no reality. Yeah, that whole problem solution thing, I've realized each time that there's like, I don't know what decision to make. I could do this thing or this other thing. It's always, they're always two sides to the same coin. And I've realized I don't want the coin anymore. There is no one that will ever be better than the other in this case, right? I actually had quit buying into that whole lesser of two evils thing a long time ago. Um, I don't want the whole coin anymore. So, anyway, that is my spiel for the week. It is 3 o'clock already. Handing it back over to you, Miss Lynn, with one
Thank
end.
you. Thank you so much. It's so great to have you, Dana. And I appreciate your coming on and sharing. It's hard to believe you've only been studying the course for a few years. And I didn't hear you say what was the name of the show that you were watching because I'm sitting here speculating, what the heck could it have been?
Better Call Saul.
Oh, I love Bob Odenkirk. I love him. So yeah. Yeah, those are good shows. My husband watches them, so that's how I see them as well. But I was sitting here thinking, what show is that? All right. Oh
Yeah.
my goodness,
Did
yeah.
you watch it?
No, I know of it, but I watched what was the other one that he was the I mean I did watch part.
Was it Breaking Bad?
Well, it was Breaking Bad is where he came from, but but I never watched. My husband watched that up to a point, and then he couldn't stand it anymore, so we didn't watch any part of that. But then, he did start watching Better Call Saul. So how I see TV is like I'll go in there like for after we're done here, he'll have something on. I'll look at it for a minute, and then I'll go do something else. So, but I know what it is, and I love Bob Odenkirk from other things, so. He's a great actor. So anyway, I'm going to go ahead and stop the YouTube. And thank you so much, Dana.
Thanks, Karen. And yes, thanks, Lynn, rather. And yes, Karen, that is from the Breaking Bad universe. Breaking Bad was the first show, and then they went on to El Camino, but Better Call Saul is it's the follow, well, no, it's the spin-off, but it's actually a prequel. But talk about amazing character development. The storylines are not for everybody. They're dark, right? They're darker storylines, but the actors are amazing. I mean, really talented. I actually can't believe how talented so many of these actors are, and they make me feel appreciative for the people in my own awareness, in my own life, for acting out their parts so beautifully. That to me is actually, watching such wonderful acting on TV is actually like symbolic of that to me. Look at you, you pissed me off so bad, you played your part so well, you
Played
know.
part so well. I love that. Yeah, absolutely. All right, guys, I'm going to go ahead and stop the YouTube. Thank y'all for hanging
Thank
out with
you.
us today. And it's Friday, so we'll see you tomorrow morning for